On Christmas Eve, my parents gave my sister a fully paid vacation house. They handed me a folded letter. When I read it aloud, my sister's smile vanished at once. I still remember how my fingers trembled as I opened that envelope. Miranda had just finished hugging Mom and Dad, holding the keys to the house in the mountains, the one she had been raving about for the past 5 years. Her smile was brighter than the lights on the Christmas tree, and I sat on the couch with the envelope, feeling all eyes on me. "Well, Caitlin, read us what it says," Mom Darlene gently prompted, wiping her hands on her apron. She had just brought the turkey out of the kitchen, and the whole house smelled of cinnamon and rosemary. I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was a little shaky. Grandma Ruth had written it shortly before she died a year ago. I cleared my throat and began to read aloud. "To our dear granddaughter, Caitlin, Grandpa Vernon, and I have always noticed how hard you work, how much effort you put into everything you do. You never asked us for help, even though you could have. That's why we're leaving you money for college, $42,000, so you can get the best education possible. And also..." I paused because the next words suddenly became difficult. "And we're also giving you 2 of our family's heirloom rings. The woman's has a sapphire and the man's has a diamond. They have been in our family since the 1890s. These are wedding rings that my great-grandmother and great-grandfather wore. May they bring you and your future husband as much happiness as they brought us. With love, Grandma Ruth and Grandpa Vernon." The silence was so thick that I could hear the wood crackling in the fireplace. Miranda froze with the keys in her hands. Her smile didn't disappear immediately. It seemed to melt slowly, like snow in the sun. "Rings?" she finally said. "What rings?" Dad Curtis came over to me and carefully took the envelope. He took out 2 small velvet boxes. He opened the first one. Inside was a gold women's ring with a dark blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. The stone was small but rich in color, reminiscent of the night sky. The second box contained a men's ring, more massive, with a large clear diamond in the center, framed by an intricate gold pattern. Both rings had initials engraved inside. Antique, barely visible. "These are the same wedding rings," Mom said quietly. "The ones Grandma Ruth and Grandpa Vernon wore at their wedding, and Grandma's parents, too. These are wedding rings for spouses. They are passed down together." Miranda stood up abruptly. The keys fell from her hands to the floor with a clatter. "Is this a joke?" Her voice was too high. "Are you kidding?" "Miro, listen," Dad began. "Don't you dare call me that," she interrupted him. "These rings were supposed to be mine. I'm older. I'm getting married in a year. Trent and I were supposed to wear them at our wedding." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, holding the 2 boxes, feeling their weight. They were heavier than they looked. Wedding rings. For me and my future husband, who I hadn't even met yet. I remember how, as a child, I was always the one who stayed home when Grandma Ruth and Grandpa Vernon took Miranda to fairs, amusement parks, restaurants. They told me I was too young, or that Miranda needed special attention, or they just forgot to ask if I wanted to go. I got used to spending Christmas Eve watching Miranda unwrap mountains of gifts from Grandma and Grandpa, while I got 1 or 2. It wasn't that I was offended. I just knew my place in the family. When I was 12, I started restoring old furniture that I found at yard sales. My dad taught me how to sand wood, and my mom showed me how to pick paint colors. I sold them online and saved my money. I earned enough to buy my first laptop myself. I also paid for my art classes myself. I paid for all my books, clothes, and even my high school prom myself. Miranda got everything from her grandparents, from a new phone to college tuition. They even bought her a car for her 25th birthday. I can't say I hated her for it. I just got used to it. I got used to being the one who takes care of herself, the one who wasn't invited to family photos because she was somewhere in the workshop working on another chair, the one whose achievements at school were commented on with a brief, "well done," while Miranda was praised for every B that became an A. I remember how on my 18th birthday, Grandma Ruth sent me a card with $50 inside. And on Miranda's 18th birthday 9 years ago, they threw a big party at a restaurant, invited all the relatives, and gave her gold earrings. It's not fair. Miranda slammed her fist on the table. The plates rattled. Grandma always promised I would get those rings. Always. I remember her showing them to me when I was 16. She said, "One day you'll wear them at your wedding." Miranda, Darlene's mother approached her, trying to touch her shoulder, but her daughter pulled away. It was Grandma Ruth's will. She and Grandpa Vernon decided for themselves. They couldn't have decided that. Miranda's face flushed. I'm older. I'm married. Well, almost married. Trent proposed to me 6 months ago. We've already set the wedding date, August 23rd next year. I was supposed to wear this ring at our wedding, and Trent was supposed to wear the men's ring. I told all my friends, I showed them photos of these rings. What am I supposed to tell them now? Dad Curtis sighed heavily. He had always been a calm man, but now I could see his jaw clenching. These rings aren't just jewelry, Miranda. They're a symbol. In our family, they are passed on to the couple who, in the opinion of the elders, will create a strong marriage. Grandma and Grandpa watched Caitlin grow up, saw how she handled responsibility. They believed that when she met the right person, am I not responsible? Miranda grabbed her purse. I've been an event coordinator for 9 years. I have a fiancé. I'm getting ready for my wedding. I've already ordered my dress. I've chosen the flowers. And she's only 19. She doesn't even have a decent boyfriend. How can she get wedding rings when she has no one to marry? Those words hurt worse than a knife. Probably because they were true. I really was only 19. I didn't have a boyfriend. I had just finished school and was getting ready to go to college. But for some reason, her words sounded like an accusation that I didn't deserve these rings, simply because I was younger and didn't have a fiancé. Miro, please. Mom held out her hand. Sit down. Let's talk calmly. Maybe Grandma and Grandpa saw something we don't see. There's nothing to talk about, Miranda said, throwing on her coat. Grandma and Grandpa always loved only her. Always. And I was just a pretty doll for them to show off. Someone to take to exhibitions and concerts. And when it came to something really important, they gave everything to her. Money for her education. Rings, and what did I get? A house they didn't even like themselves. Where they only spent a few summers. You have a house, Dad reminded her, louder this time. The very house in the mountains you've been dreaming of for 5 years. Paid for in full. That's no small gift, Miranda. It's not the same. Her voice broke into a scream. Rings are a tradition. It's family. It's something that should be passed down from generation to generation. It should go to the eldest daughter. That's the rule, not to the younger one who isn't even going to get married. Mom tried to say something, but Miranda wasn't listening anymore. She grabbed the keys from the floor, opened the door, and walked out, slamming it so hard that the windows rattled. Her car's engine roared in the driveway, the tires squealed on the snow, and in a moment the red taillights disappeared into the darkness. We sat in silence. The turkey on the table was already getting cold. The candles on the Christmas tree continued to flicker, but the holiday suddenly seemed very distant. Mom cried quietly, wiping her eyes with a kitchen towel. Dad sat staring menacingly out the window, his hands clenched into fists. She'll calm down, Mom finally said, but her voice trembled. We just need to give her time. Maybe in a week she'll call, and we'll discuss everything calmly. I looked at the 2 boxes in my hands. The rings were beautiful. Antique work. Exquisite. The woman's ring was delicate, with that special shade of blue sapphire. The man's ring was more massive, solid, the diamond sparkling even in the dim light of the living room. Grandma Ruth always wore her ring even when she was baking pies or watering flowers. Grandpa Vernon never took his off either. I remembered how it sparkled on his hand when he taught me how to plant tomatoes in the garden. Why didn't they give them to you and Dad? I asked. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Dad scratched the back of his head, his usual habit when he didn't know what to say. Your mom wanted something more modern, he finally replied. She didn't like the old-fashioned style, and I didn't want to start our marriage feeling like I owed something to my wife's family. It seemed right to buy something of our own, something that would be ours alone. No history, no expectations, just our rings. Mom nodded, wiping away her tears. We thought the rings would go to one of you, sweetie. But when Grandma Ruth wrote her will, she was very specific. She said the rings should go to you, Caitlin, because you remind her of herself when she was young, determined, hard-working, not afraid of hardship. She said you would find a worthy husband who would also value hard work and dedication. I didn't feel determined or hard-working. I just did what had to be done. I didn't wait for someone else to solve my problems. Maybe that was the difference between me and Miranda. She was used to receiving. I was used to earning. That evening, I hid the rings in a small safe in my room, a gift from my parents on my 18th birthday, when I started selling furniture and keeping cash at home. The boxes fit perfectly inside. I closed the door, turned the lock, and sat down on the bed. Snow was falling outside the window. Somewhere far away in her new house or in Trent's apartment, Miranda was probably crying or screaming. Maybe she was calling her friends, complaining about the injustice. And I just sat there and stared at the safe. My fingers unconsciously touched the cold metal, and somewhere deep inside I knew it wasn't over yet. Miranda never gave up easily, especially when it came to things she considered hers. March came with wet snow and the promise of new life. I stood at the entrance to Riverside College, clutching the strap of my backpack so tightly that my fingers went numb. Industrial design, the major I had dreamed of for the past 2 years. Studying in Grayton, 2 hours from my hometown of Millvale, far away, but not too far, far enough to feel independent. My apartment was tiny, a one-room studio on the 3rd floor of an old building. The windows overlooked a street with a coffee shop and a laundromat. The walls needed painting, the floor creaked, but it was my space. I paid for it myself, partly with money from my grandparents, partly with what I had earned over the past few months, selling restored furniture. "Are you sure you don't need any help?" asked the guy in the hallway, pulling my last box. "Jaden, we met a week ago in the library when I was looking for books on the basics of design. And he was helping the librarian set up computers. 20 years old, tall, with curly red hair and thin-rimmed glasses. A computer science student, quiet and calm, with that rare quality of people who don't say more than necessary. "Thanks, I can manage," I replied, opening the door. "But you can put the box on the table if it's not too heavy." He smiled and carefully placed the box down. He looked around the room. Cozy, a little empty, but cozy. "Are you planning to do anything with the walls?" "I'll paint them when I have time, maybe light gray or beige." "Gray will do," he said, adjusting his glasses. "If you need anything fixed, give me a call. I live 1 floor below in apartment 19. After he left, I unpacked my things. Clothes in the closet, books on the shelf, dishes in the kitchen cabinet. The rings remained in my old safe, which I had brought from home. It stood in the closet under a pile of sweaters. I opened it every evening, looked at the 2 velvet boxes, and closed it again, as if to check that they were still there. The first call from Miranda came a week later. "Hi, Katie." Her voice was too sweet. "How's school? Have you settled in?" "Yes, everything's fine." "I'm glad. Listen, I've been thinking about those rings. Maybe we could come to an agreement. I understand that Grandma wanted you to have them, but you know you don't need them right now. And I'm getting married in 5 months. Maybe I could wear them to the wedding and then give them back." I was silent. I didn't believe for a second that my sister would give back something she already considered hers. A bus drove by outside the window, its brakes squealing. "Katie, can you hear me?" "I can hear you, Miranda. I can't give them away. It's Grandma's will." But it's only temporary, just for one day. For my wedding? No. Pause. Then her voice became colder. Are you really that selfish? Can't you share with your sister for one day? It's not selfishness. It's respect for Grandma's wishes. She hung up. The next day, she sent a message. Think about it some more, please. My parents called too. Mom Darlene asked me to be more patient. Miranda is going through a difficult time, Katie. Weddings are stressful. She wants everything to be perfect. Mom, I'm not giving up the rings. Not even for one day. I understand, dear. Just be gentle with her, okay? She's your sister. Dad was more concise. Keep them in a safe place. And if Miranda calls again, don't let her pressure you. But Miranda didn't call. Instead, she came over. Hey, it was Saturday morning. I had just gotten back from my run when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Miranda standing in the hallway, wearing a white coat and tall boots, with a purse slung over her shoulder. She was smiling broadly, but her eyes were cold and feverish. Hi, I'm in town on business and thought I'd stop by to see how you're settling in. Miranda, you should have warned me. Why? We're sisters. Can I come in? I stepped back. She walked into the room and looked around. Cute. Tiny but cute. Do you live here alone? Yes. She walked around the room, touching things. My books on the shelf, photos on the wall. She even looked in the kitchen cabinets. Are you looking for something? I asked. No, just curious. You've always been so neat. She opened the closet where my clothes were hanging. I saw her gaze slide over the shelf with sweaters. There, underneath them, was a safe. Miranda, what are you doing? Looking at your things. Is that okay? No, it's not, I said, walking over and closing the closet. If you came for the rings, it's a waste of time. She turned around, her face hardening for a moment, then softening again. I'm not here for the rings. I just wanted to see you. We hardly talk anymore. Because you only call to talk about the rings. That's not true. Miranda, please leave. I have to get ready for class. She picked up her purse, walked to the door, but turned around on the threshold. You know, Mom's right. You really have become selfish. Grandma and Grandpa spoiled you by giving you those rings. Now you think you're special. But you're not special, Caitlin. You're just a girl with a couple of old rings you don't even need. After she left, I felt my heart pounding. I checked the safe. Everything was there. But the feeling of anxiety didn't go away. In the evening, I met Jaden at the coffee shop across the street. I told him about Miranda, about the rings, about everything. He listened, stirring his coffee without interrupting. Does she really want them that badly? He asked when I finished. It seems like... No, she definitely does. I know my sister. Then be careful. People do strange things when they want something badly. Do you think she'll try to take them? I don't know, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Maybe you should move them somewhere safer? I nodded. He was right. Over the next few weeks, Miranda sent messages. First, she apologized for being harsh. Then she offered money, $2,000 for me to give her the rings for the wedding. Then $3,000. I didn't respond. Then she started writing about family values, about how unfair it was that the younger sister got what should have belonged to the older one. Grandma didn't know what she was doing when she wrote the will. She was old. Maybe she made a mistake. Mom and Dad are on my side. They're just afraid to tell you the truth. Trent thinks it's unfair, too. Everyone does. I blocked her number, but she switched to social media. Her profile was filled with photos of wedding preparations. The dress was lush, white, with lace. The cake was 4 tiers. The decor was roses and candles. She posted everything except one detail. There was no mention of rings, no photos, no hints. It was strange. Miranda always bragged about everything. Why were the rings suddenly taboo? I told Jaden about it. We'd been dating for 2 months, and he had become someone I could trust. Maybe she gave up, he suggested. Miranda never gives up. This is something else. Then be careful. I decided to move the rings to the bank. There was a small bank on Main Street in Grayton that offered safe deposit boxes. I rented one for a year and put both boxes in it. Now they were safe. At least, that's what I thought. May arrived with warmth and blossoming trees. I immersed myself in my studies, in projects, in a new life. Jaden became my boyfriend. Officially, although neither of us liked pompous announcements. We just spent time together, went to the movies, cooked dinners in my tiny kitchen, talked about everything and nothing. Miranda continued to post photos, wedding invitations, elegant, gold, dress fittings. She was glowing. Trent was there in a suit, smiling. They looked like the perfect couple. But every time I saw those photos, I had an uneasy feeling, as if something was about to happen. And it did. It was June, a Friday evening. Jaden and I went to an exhibition at a local gallery and came back late, around 11. I approached the door to my apartment and froze. The lock looked different, as if someone had tried to open it. There were scratches around the keyhole and the metal surface was slightly deformed. "Jaden," I pointed to the lock. "Look." He leaned over and looked closely. "Someone tried to break it recently. The scratches are fresh." I felt cold. I quietly opened the door and went inside. Everything was in its place inside. Books on the shelves, clothes in the closet, dishes in the kitchen. Even the safe was where I had left it, under the sweaters. But the air in the room was different, as if someone had been there, as if someone had been breathing that air a few minutes ago. Jaden turned on the light and walked around the room. "Nothing's missing?" "I don't know. We need to check." I checked all my things. My laptop was there. My phone, wallet, documents, even the cash in the desk drawer. Everything. Almost everything was there. The feeling didn't go away. It only got stronger when I realized that some of my things were slightly out of place. Not where I had last seen them. "We need to call the police," Jaden said. "And what am I going to tell them? That someone tried to open my door but didn't steal anything? It's still a crime?" Attempted break-in. I sat down on the bed, trembling. Jaden sat down next to me and hugged me. "Do you think it was her?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer, but we both knew the answer. For a week after the lock incident, I lived in constant tension. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. Every step on the stairs made me look back. Jaden suggested installing an extra lock, and we did. Now there were 2 locks on my door instead of 1, but that didn't make me feel any safer. On Tuesday, around 3 in the afternoon, I realized I had forgotten my industrial design notes. They were on my desk, and I needed them for a seminar at 5. Jaden was between classes, so we decided to quickly stop by my place. "I'll be just a minute," I said, unlocking the first lock. I'll grab my notes and we'll go right away." The second lock wouldn't budge. I pulled the handle and the door opened. The lock wasn't closed. I clearly remembered locking both locks in the morning. I always double-checked. "Jaden?" I whispered. "Something's wrong." He came over, looked at the lock, and frowned. He gently pushed the door. It opened silently. And then we saw him. A man in a black balaclava was standing by my closet. Things were scattered on the floor, clothes, books, even bedding. He was holding my safe, trying to open it. "Hey," Jaden shouted. The man turned abruptly, threw the safe on the floor. It fell with a dull thud and rushed to the window. It was open. He jumped over the windowsill and disappeared. Jaden rushed after him, but I grabbed his arm. "Don't! He could be dangerous." "But he's getting away." "Let him. Let's call the police." I took out my phone with trembling hands and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered after the second ring. "Emergency services, how can I help you?" "I've been robbed. I just caught a burglar in my apartment. He escaped through the window." She wrote down the address, asked us not to touch anything, and said a patrol would be there in 5 minutes. I sank to the floor by the door, not going inside. Jaden sat next to me, hugging me. We were both breathing heavily. "Did you see his face?" I asked. "No, the balaclava covered everything. But he was tall, about 180 centimeters. strong build, dressed in black. The police arrived in 4 minutes, 2 officers, a woman in her 40s and a young man. They looked around the apartment, photographed the scattered items, the safe on the floor, the open window. The female officer, Sergeant Morrison, took my statement. Do you know what he was looking for? Yes, antique wedding rings. I have them from an inheritance. They're very valuable, a family heirloom. Where are they now? In the bank, in a safe deposit box. I moved them there a month ago. A wise decision, and this safe. She pointed to the one lying on the floor. It's empty. I don't keep anything else of value at home. Sergeant Morrison nodded. Do you have any idea who might have organized this robbery? I hesitated. Jaden touched my hand, squeezing my fingers encouragingly. My sister, I finally said. Miranda Coalfield. She wanted those rings. She really wanted them. We argued about them. A week ago, someone tried to break my lock. The officer wrote down the name and asked for Miranda's contact information. I gave her my phone number and address. I felt like a traitor, but I couldn't keep quiet any longer. We'll talk to her, Sergeant Morrison promised. And now you'd better stay somewhere else for a few days while we investigate. I moved in with Jaden. His apartment was similar to mine, only a little bigger and neater. We slept on his couch, me curled up in a ball, him hugging me. I didn't sleep until morning, imagining that man in a balaclava, rummaging through my things, holding the safe. At 9 a.m, Sergeant Morrison called. Miss Coalfield, we have news. We've arrested a man. What? How? He came back. Last night, around 9, he tried to break into your house again. A neighbor called the police, and we caught him on his way out. I couldn't believe it. He came back. Why? Can you come to the station? The sergeant asked. We need you to identify him. We arrived in half an hour. The station was small, an old building with beige walls and linoleum floors. We were led into an interrogation room. A man in his 30s was sitting at the table, wearing a worn denim jacket and t-shirt. He had short-cropped blonde hair, was pale, and had dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired and frightened. Is this him? Asked the sergeant. I don't know. He was wearing a balaclava, but the build is similar, the height too. The man looked up. He looked at me, then lowered his eyes. It's me, he said quietly. I was in your apartment. I'm sorry. Who are you? I asked. Kyle Redford, 31 years old, electrician. Or rather, I was an electrician. Now I'm unemployed. Sergeant Morrison opened a folder and took out a sheet of paper. Mr. Redford has a criminal record for petty theft. 3 years ago, he stole tools from a construction site. Probation, community service. She looked at him. Are you stealing again? I didn't steal anything. He rubbed his face with his hands. I didn't find anything. Those rings, they weren't there. Why were you looking for them? I asked, sitting down across from him. Who hired you? He hesitated. Sergeant Morrison looked at him sternly. Mr. Redford, the more you cooperate, the better it will be for you. Who hired you? I don't know. He sighed. The contact was through Messenger, an anonymous account. They wrote to me a month ago. They said there was a job, an easy job. Find 2 antique rings in a girl's apartment. They gave me the address and a photo of the house. They promised $2,000. $2,000? I asked. Yes, $1,000 up front, $1,000 after I find the rings. I got the first $1,000 through an anonymous transfer, in cash through a pickup point, no sender's name. Did you hear the client's voice? Once. They called through Messenger, a voice call, a woman's voice, young. She said the rings were very important, that she needed them for her wedding, that the girl who had them had stolen them from her. My heart was pounding so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. What else did she say? That the rings rightfully belong to her because she is older, that she made a mistake giving them to you. He looked at me guiltily. I didn't know it was a lie. I thought I was really helping her get back what was hers. But you came back, Jaden said, after we caught you. Why? Kyle was silent. Then he replied quietly, She wrote to me. She said that if I didn't find the rings, I wouldn't get the second 1,000, that I should try again, that maybe she had hidden them somewhere else in the apartment. I was desperate. I needed the money. I have debts. I lost my job 2 months ago. I didn't think. Sergeant Morrison wrote everything down in her notebook. Do you have screenshots of the conversation? Yes. But after I was arrested, the account was deleted. I checked. It's gone. We'll take a look at your phone anyway. Maybe our technicians will find something. She led me and Jaden out into the hallway. It's definitely your sister, she said. All the details match. Now the question is how to prove it. An anonymous account, a voice call, a cash transfer. She had thought of everything, but people always make mistakes. I nodded, though inside I was trembling. Miranda, my sister. She hired a burglar. She wanted to steal the rings. Not ask, not persuade, steal. What now? I asked. We'll talk to her, question her. If she confesses, it will be easy to close the case. If not, well, at least Mr. Redford is cooperating. His testimony carries weight. I left the station feeling like the ground was shaking beneath my feet. Jaden was holding my hand, but I could barely feel him. Miranda, my sister, the one we grew up with, even though we were far apart, the one who always got everything. And now, she wanted to take away the only thing my grandparents had left me. Now, that evening I called home. I usually waited until Saturday to call, but now I couldn't wait. Mom answered on the third ring. Katie, how are you, sweetie? Mom, I had a burglar in the apartment. He was looking for the rings. Pause, then, oh my God, are you okay? Yes, I wasn't home when he broke in, but the police caught him. And he told them who hired him. Another pause, a longer one. Who? A woman, a young woman. She told him we were sisters, that the rings belonged to her. The silence was so heavy I could barely breathe. Mom, it's Miranda. You know it's her. Katie? Mom's voice trembled. Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe, Mom, enough. I raised my voice at her for the first time in my life. Stop defending her. She hired a burglar. She wanted to steal my rings. That's a crime. Caitlin, calm down. No, I won't calm down. Where's Miranda? Is she there? Let me talk to her. There was a rustling sound, muffled voices, then another voice. Dad's. Katie, what happened? I repeated everything. About the burglar, about Kyle Redford, about what he said. Dad listened silently. When I finished, he sighed heavily. Miranda's here, with Trent. They came for dinner. Hold on. I heard footsteps. The door opening. Dad's voice, louder. Miranda, come here, now. More footsteps. Then her voice alarmed. What happened? Caitlin wants to talk to you. Dad turned on the speakerphone. Now I could hear everyone. Hi, Katie. Miranda's voice was tense. How are you? How am I? I could barely hold back a scream. I had a burglar. He was looking for rings, and you ask how I am? A burglar? My God, that's awful. Are you okay? Don't pretend, Miranda. The police caught him. He told them everything about the woman who hired him, about the rings, about us being sisters. Silence. A long, unbearable silence. I don't know what you're talking about, Miranda finally said, but her voice was shaking. You're lying. You hired him. You wanted to steal the rings. That's absurd. Why would I? Because you're obsessed with those rings. Because you can't accept that they're mine. Because you've always gotten everything you wanted. And you can't accept that this time you didn't. Caitlin, you're exaggerating. He described your voice, Miranda, a young woman's voice. He said you were talking about the wedding, about how I stole them from you. I didn't say anything like that. I didn't hire anyone. Then who did? I shouted now. Who else could have known about the rings? Who else wanted them? I don't know. Maybe one of our relatives. Maybe none of this would have happened if you weren't so selfish. If you weren't so stubborn. An explosion. I heard Dad shout, Mom cry. Trent's voice surprised. And Miranda? What did you just say? I didn't mean that. You just confessed. Dad's voice was thunderous. Oh my God, Miranda. Did you really do that? Did you hire a burglar? Dad, no. Don't lie to me. Don't you dare lie to me. There was crying. Miranda's voice broke. I didn't mean to. I wanted those rings so badly. They were supposed to be mine. Grandma promised. She always said I would get them. And you decided to steal them? Mom's voice was barely audible through her tears. From your own sister? She doesn't deserve them. She's not even getting married. She doesn't need them. That's not for you to decide. Dad was shouting now. It was Grandma and Grandpa's decision. Their will. And you hired a criminal. You wanted to rob your own sister. Trent spoke up, his voice cold. Miranda, tell me this isn't true. Trent, I can explain. Tell me you didn't hire a burglar. Pause. I didn't know he would be so violent. I just told him to find the rings. I thought he would just take them when Caitlin wasn't home. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. God, Trent said so quietly I could barely hear him. You really did this. Trent, please. You asked me for help? His voice trembled. A month ago. You asked me to go with you to Grayton. You said you wanted to get your things from Caitlin. I thought you meant clothes or books, but you meant the rings, didn't you? Trent. You wanted me to help you steal them? He shouted now. To become a criminal. No, I wanted you to be there to support me. I didn't ask you to steal. But you asked me to go there to be your accomplice. That's not true. Miranda, Dad's voice was like steel. Enough. We've heard enough. If you hear me, ever try something like this again, you'll lose everything. The house, the inheritance, everything. The house is still in our name. We just gave you the keys, but we can take them back. And we will, if you don't stop this madness. Dad, please. Go home, Miranda. Take Trent and go. We all need to think. There was crying, sobbing, footsteps, doors closing. Then my mother's voice, hoarse from tears. Katie, are you still there? Yes, Mom. I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm sorry for everything. We didn't know she would go this far. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there holding the phone, feeling the tears roll down my cheeks. 3 days later, Mom called. Her voice was broken. Katie, we have a problem. What happened? Trent is packing his things. He's going to leave Miranda. He says he can't trust her after what happened, that she wanted to make him an accomplice to a crime. And Miranda? She's on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She cries all the time. She doesn't eat. Today, something even worse came to light. Mom paused, then continued. She wanted him to go with her to see you. 2 weeks ago, she asked him to steal the rings together. When he refused, she started yelling at him. She said that if he really loved her, he would help her. Today, she did it again. She almost demanded it. He can't take it anymore. I closed my eyes. Miranda, my sister. She was losing everything. Her fiancé, her parents' respect, maybe even her home. And all because of a couple of antique rings. Trent didn't go, but the price of his staying was high. Mom called me a week after that awful conversation. Her voice sounded tired, but there was a note of hope in it. He set a condition, she said. Miranda has to see a psychiatrist. Otherwise, the wedding is off. And she agreed? She had to. Your dad insists too. He says that if she doesn't get help, we'll take the house back. We'll officially register it in our name. I didn't know how to feel. Relief? Satisfaction? Or maybe pity? Miranda's my sister, even though we weren't close. Seeing her fall apart was painful, but what she did was unacceptable. Who will be treating her? Dr. Helen Shores. She's a woman in her 50s, very experienced. She specializes in family, trauma, and narcissistic disorders. Trent found her through his insurance company. The first session is on Friday. July was hot. I continued my studies, trying not to think about Miranda, but my parents kept me informed. After each session, my mother would call and tell me what was happening. At first, Miranda denied everything. She told Dr. Shores that it was a misunderstanding, that she just wanted to talk to that man about the possibility of buying the rings, that everything had gotten out of hand through no fault of her own. But Dr. Shores was experienced. She didn't pressure her or accuse her. She just asked questions. Why were the rings so important? What did they mean to Miranda? When did she first feel that she had to have them? And gradually, session by session, the picture became clearer. Grandma Ruth always told Miranda that she was special, not just pretty or smart. Special, chosen, deserving of more than others. When Miranda was 6, her grandmother showed her the rings for the first time. She put the women's ring on her finger. Of course, it was too big and slipped off, but her grandmother held her hand and said, "One day you will wear them. One day you will be as beautiful a bride as I am. Because you are special, Miro. You are not like the others." Miranda grew up believing this, believing that she was different, that the rules that applied to others did not apply to her, that she deserved the best simply because she existed. Her grandparents fed this belief for years, with gifts, attention, admiration. They never said no to her. They never set limits. And her parents tried to balance things out. But how can you balance when one child is bathed in the love of their grandparents while the other is left in the shadows? Dr. Shores explained this to her mother after the 6th session. Narcissistic pride. Not yet a full-blown personality disorder, but a tendency toward it that is growing deeper. Miranda was used to seeing herself as the center of the universe, and when she was denied something she considered hers, her world fell apart. The rings became a symbol, not just jewelry, but confirmation of her uniqueness. When her grandparents gave them to me, Miranda felt as if she had been told that she was worthless, that she was not special, that she was ordinary, and a wedding without those rings was a disaster for her. She told all her friends about the family rings. She posted old photos of her grandmother Ruth wearing them. She promised that her wedding would be incredible because she would wear the same rings as her grandmother. And now she had to admit that the rings had gone to her younger sister. It was humiliating. Proof that she wasn't as special as she thought. When my mother told me all this, I was sitting on the balcony of Jaden's apartment, watching the sunset. I felt a strange mixture of anger and pity. Miranda was sick, but she also hired a burglar. She wanted to steal my rings. She almost dragged Trent into a crime. "That doesn't excuse what she did," I said. "No, it doesn't," Mom agreed. "But at least we understand why, and she's working on herself. Dr. Shores says there's progress." I wasn't sure I cared, but somewhere deep down, a small part of me wanted Miranda to get better, to become a better person. Not for me, for herself. Jaden sat next to me, reading a book. He put it down when I finished talking and when he saw the look on my face. "How are you?" I paused. The phone was on speaker, so he heard everything. About Miranda's therapy, about narcissistic pride, about how Grandma Ruth created a monster without realizing it. I opened my mouth, but without saying anything, I closed it. He was silent for a while, giving me time, and then quietly asked, "How do you feel?" "I don't know, angry, sad, tired, all of the above." "What if there was a way to fix it?" "How? Give her the rings?" "No, they're mine." Grandma and Grandpa wanted me to have them. "That's not what I mean." He took my hand. "What if you could give her the rings but keep the real ones for yourself?" I didn't understand right away. I looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Copies. Exact copies of the rings. A jeweler could make them, identical, and you could give her one pair or both, without saying which ones are real and which ones aren't. I thought about it. It was crazy. But at the same time, it made sense. Miranda needed the rings as a symbol. She didn't need their real value or authenticity. She needed to wear them at the wedding, show them to her friends, feel special. And if she didn't know whether they were real or not, would it matter? It will be expensive, I said. You have money from your grandparents and from selling the furniture. I have savings and a job too. We can afford it. But this is manipulation. It's a compromise. He squeezed my hand. You're giving her what she wants, but you keep what they left you. And maybe it will help her calm down, move on. But if you don't want to, don't force yourself. I thought about it all night, and in the morning I made a decision. We found a jeweler through a friend of Jaden's. Mr. Oswald Grimm, 65 years old, a thin man with a gray beard and attentive brown eyes. He worked in a small workshop on the outskirts of Grayton, making orders for museums and private collectors. I brought him the rings. He examined them under a magnifying glass for a long time. Then he nodded. 19th century, good work. 919 gold, natural Ceylon sapphire. The diamond is also natural, about 3 carats. The cut is antique, not perfect by modern standards, but it has its charm. He looked at me. Do you want copies? Yes, 2 pairs, identical. It won't be easy. Antique techniques are different from modern ones, but I can try. It will take a month, maybe 5 weeks, and it will cost $4,000 for both pairs. I paid half up front. I promised to pay the rest when he finished the work. August flew by, school, projects, time with Jaden. I tried not to think about Miranda, the wedding, the rings. But my parents kept calling. Miranda is going to therapy. Miranda is calmer. Miranda even apologized to Trent. They set a new wedding date, August 23rd as planned. I didn't know whether to be happy or scared. Mr. Grimm called 5 weeks later. They're ready, come see them. The copies were perfect. I held 2 pairs of rings in my hands, 1 real, 1 copy, and couldn't tell them apart. The same color of gold, the same shade of sapphire, the same sparkle of diamond. Even the engraving inside was reproduced exactly. How did you do it? Many years of practice, Mr. Grimm smiled, and a little magic. He winked slyly. The stones are synthetic, of course, but they are high-quality, laboratory-grown sapphires and diamonds. You can't tell the difference with the naked eye. Even a jeweler wouldn't notice unless they use special equipment. I paid him the rest of the money. I put all 4 rings in separate boxes. The real ones in the old velvet ones. The copies in new ones, but exactly the same. And then I mixed them up. Jaden watched me do it. I closed my eyes, rearranged the boxes on the table, and opened my eyes. Now I really didn't know which was which. Why? He asked. To be honest, when I tell Miranda that I don't know which are real and which are copies, it will be true. 2 weeks before the wedding, I went home for the first time in 3 months. My parents met me at the door and hugged me. Mom was crying and Dad looked older than I remembered. Miranda wants to see you, Dad said. If you're ready, I'm ready. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Millvale, neutral territory. Miranda arrived first and was sitting at a table by the window. She had lost weight. Her face was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She was dressed simply. Jeans, a white t-shirt. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked tired, but there was something new in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before. Awareness, perhaps, or shame. Yet there was still the familiar predatory gleam I had always seen in them. I sat down across from her. The waitress brought our coffee. We were silent for a minute or two. Thank you for coming, Miranda finally said. Her voice was quiet. I wasn't sure you would agree. Mom asked. Yes, she's been asking for a lot lately. Miranda smiled weakly. Caitlin, I want to apologize. For everything, for what I did, for the robber, for everything. I nodded. I didn't know what to say. Dr. Shores says I have problems, Miranda continued, that my grandparents spoiled me, that I grew up thinking I was the center of the universe, that when you got the rings, I felt like I lost myself. She looked at me and smiled crookedly. It sounds crazy, right? A little. I went crazy, really crazy. Those rings became an obsession for me. I couldn't think about anything else, about the wedding, about Trent, about our future, only about the rings, about how unfair it was that you got them. She fell silent and clenched her teeth. But it wasn't unfair. Grandma knew what she was doing. She saw that I was spoiled, that I needed to learn not to get everything I wanted. And you really deserve them. You earned them. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger, something else. Maybe pity. Looking into her eyes, I saw the same greedy, fox-like spark staring at me with a feverish flame. Maybe Miranda was trying to believe her own words, but I could see that part of her stubbornly and maliciously didn't believe them, harboring resentment and anger toward me. I brought you something, I said, taking 2 boxes out of my bag. Miranda looked at them. What is it? The lights in her eyes rolled in surprise. Rings. 2 pairs, 1 real, 1 copy. I ordered the copies a month ago. Exact, perfect copies. I placed the boxes on the table. Before bringing them here, I mixed them up. Now even I don't know which ones are real and which ones aren't. And no one else knows either. Miranda looked at the boxes, then at me. Her eyes filled with disbelief. You? Is this true? You... Looking even closer, she recognized the same boxes used for family rings, and her face became more and more shocked, her eyes filling with tears. Why? Why are you doing this? Because you're my sister. Because you're sick, but you're trying to get better. Because maybe this will help you move on. I pushed the boxes toward her. Take any one. Wear it at the wedding. Whether they're real or not doesn't matter. The main thing is that they are with you. Now she was crying, really crying, not pretending. Quietly, without hiding her face. She reached out and touched the boxes. I don't deserve this. A hoarse falseness slipped into her voice, as if she herself did not believe what she was saying. No, you don't, I nodded, but I'm giving them to you anyway. She opened one box, then the other. A women's ring with a sapphire, a men's ring with a diamond. Both sparkled in the light of the coffee shop. Miranda looked at them for a long, long time. Then she closed the boxes, as if unsure which to choose, and looked at me. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Caitlin. Miranda and Trent's wedding was beautiful. Small, just family and close friends. The ceremony was in a small church on the outskirts of Millvale, and the reception was at a restaurant. Miranda looked beautiful in a white dress, and Trent looked solemn in a dark suit. A sapphire ring sparkled on her finger. A diamond ring sparkled on his. I came with Jaden. We sat in the back, trying to be inconspicuous. The atmosphere was tense but polite. The parents smiled, albeit stiffly. The guests didn't know about the drama that preceded this day. They only saw a happy couple, a beautiful bride, and a romantic ceremony. During the banquet, Miranda came up to our table. She leaned over and hugged me. She whispered in my ear, "They're beautiful. Whether they're real or not doesn't matter." Thank you, sister. I hugged her back. For the first time in many years, I felt that we were truly sisters. The year passed quickly. I finished my 2nd year of college, moved into a bigger apartment, and continued dating Jaden. Miranda and Trent settled into the mountain house she had dreamed of. She continued to go to therapy once every 2 weeks. My parents said she was changing. She was becoming calmer, less self-absorbed. And then, in July of the following year, Miranda gave birth to a daughter. She named her Ruth after her grandmother. My mother sent me photos. A tiny girl with reddish fuzz on her head, wrapped in a pink blanket. A week after the birth, Miranda called me. Caitlin. Her voice sounded different, softer, warmer. We need to talk about everything. Can you come over?" I arrived at Miranda's house on a Saturday at the end of July. The mountain house was cozy, wooden with large windows and a terrace overlooking the forest. The air here was fresher and cooler than in the city. It smelled of pine trees and rain, even though the sky was clear. Miranda met me at the door. She looked different than she had a year ago at the wedding. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, she wore no makeup, and she was dressed in faded jeans and a loose-fitting sweater. She was holding a baby wrapped in a soft yellow blanket. Little Ruth was asleep, her tiny fists clenched near her chin. "Caitlin," Miranda smiled, sincerely, without the strain that had been there before. "Come in. Thank you for coming." It was warm and cozy inside, soft furniture, lots of pillows, baby things scattered everywhere, diapers, toys, bottles. It was a home where people lived, not just showed off their status. "Would you like to hold her?" Miranda asked as we sat down on the sofa. I nodded. She carefully handed me the baby. Ruth was so light, so tiny. I was afraid to breathe too loudly lest I wake her. She stirred, her eyelids fluttered, but they didn't open. "She's beautiful," I whispered. Yes, Miranda sat down next to me, looking at her daughter. She changed everything, absolutely everything. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Miranda spoke. When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared. Not because I didn't want a baby, but because I was afraid of becoming the kind of mother that Grandma Ruth was. I was afraid of ruining her, of making her like me. I looked at her. Her eyes were full of tears. Dr. Shores helped me understand a lot about myself, about my grandmother, about how family dynamics work. My grandmother didn't want to ruin me. She saw herself in me, young, ambitious, beautiful, and she wanted to give me everything she didn't have. But at the same time, she didn't give me the most important thing: boundaries. The understanding that the world doesn't revolve around me. What about your parents? My parents tried, but how could they compete with grandparents who indulged my every whim? They lost before they even started. Miranda wiped away her tears. And you grew up on your own, without their constant approval, without that feeling that you're the center of the universe, and that made you stronger, better. And in the end, even my grandparents saw and understood that. Ruth stirred in my arms and opened her eyes. They were dark blue, like all babies' eyes. She looked at me, not crying, just looking. "I want to apologize," Miranda continued, "for everything. For hiring that man, for trying to involve Trent, for all the years I treated you like you were less, like you didn't matter. You always mattered, Caitlin. I was just too blind to see it. I didn't know how to respond." My throat tightened. Ruth started to sniffle, and Miranda picked her up and held her to her chest. The baby began to feed, and Miranda relaxed. "I want to give you back the rings," she said quietly. "The ones you gave me. They're yours. They've always been yours, and if you want the house, my parents can transfer it to you. I don't mind." "Miranda, no." I shook my head. I don't need a house. This is your home. Yours and Trent's, and Ruth's, and your rings. I don't need them. They're yours. Besides, I'm still in school. The wedding is a long way off. "But Jaden," she looked at me. "Mom said you've been together for over a year. Hasn't he proposed?" I smiled. "He did, a month ago, at our favorite coffee shop over coffee and croissants. No drama, no huge rock. He just asked if I wanted to marry him after I finished college. I said yes." Miranda smiled through her tears. "You deserve happiness, Caitlin, more than anyone. You deserve it, too, and it looks like you've found it." She looked at Ruth, who continued to eat with her eyes closed. "Yes, I have. Finally." She paused, then added, "You know what's funny? I really don't care if those rings are real or not. I wore them at the wedding and felt complete. But not because they were antique or valuable, because you gave them to me, my sister, after everything I did. That was important, not the rings, your forgiveness. I felt tears rolling down my cheeks. Miranda reached out and squeezed my hand. "Can I be part of your life again?" she asked quietly. "I know I don't deserve it, but if you let me, I want to be a real sister, not one who is jealous and competitive, but one who is supportive." I squeezed her hand in response. "You can." We hugged, carefully so as not to crush Ruth between us. Both of us cried, but these were different tears. Not tears of anger or resentment, but of relief and reconciliation. The year passed unnoticed. I finished my 3rd year, then my 4th. Miranda and I began to communicate more often. At first, it was rare. Once a month, a phone call or a short meeting, then more often. She told me about Ruth, about how the girl was growing up. I told her about my studies, my projects, my plans for the future. When I announced the wedding date, May 1st, a month after graduation, Miranda offered to help. "I know a good florist and a pastry chef. If you want, I can give you their contact information." At first, I hesitated, but then I agreed. She had changed, really changed. She became more attentive, less self-centered. When we met, she asked about me, about Jaden, about our plans. She didn't try to talk only about herself. She listened. She sympathized. She was happy for me. My parents were happy. My mom, Darlene, cried every time she saw us together. My dad, Curtis, just smiled and hugged us both. "I always wanted you two to be close," he said once, "but I knew I couldn't force it to happen. It had to happen on its own. And it did. Not because of rings, not because of inheritance, but because of pain, therapy, forgiveness. Because we both finally saw each other for who we really were." My wedding was modest. It was in my parents' garden, where old apple trees and roses grew. We set up chairs and rows on the grass and an arch of flowers in front of the house. There weren't many guests, close friends, relatives, a few classmates. Jaden stood by the arch in a dark blue suit, smiling nervously. I walked toward him in a simple white dress, without a veil, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. A sapphire ring sparkled on my finger. I still didn't know if it was real or a copy, and I didn't care. It was beautiful. It was part of our family history, and that was enough. The ceremony was conducted by a local priest, an old friend of my parents. He spoke about love, about devotion, about how marriage is not only joy, but also work. We exchanged vows and rings. Jaden kissed me, and the guests applauded. Miranda sat in the front row with Trent and Ruth. The girl was almost 2 years old and was fidgeting, trying to pick a flower from the bouquet standing nearby. Miranda held her back, smiling. When our eyes met, she raised her hand and gave me a thumbs up. I smiled back. The banquet was simple. Tables under apple trees, garlands of lanterns, music from speakers. We danced, ate, laughed. Mom cried, Dad gave a toast, Jaden's brother told funny stories about him. During the banquet, Miranda came up to me. Ruth was asleep in Trent's arms, and Miranda took the opportunity to step away. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" We moved under an apple tree, away from the guests. Miranda hugged me. "You look beautiful. You're the happiest bride I've ever seen. Thank you for everything, for helping with the planning, for coming." Of course I came. Now you're my sister. She paused, then said quietly, "You know, I realized something recently. It doesn't matter which rings are real. What matters is that our marriages will be real. Our love, our family." I felt tears welling up in my eyes again. I hugged her tighter. "You're right. I'm proud of you, Katie. Really proud. You deserve this." We stood there for a few minutes, hugging under the apple tree. The music was playing. The guests were laughing. Jaden was looking for me. I looked at him, then at Miranda, then at my parents sitting at the table, holding hands. For the first time in many years, I felt that we were truly a family. Not perfect, with scars, mistakes, and pain in the past, but real. the kind that has endured, the kind that has forgiven, the kind that has found its way to each other through all the obstacles. The rings that were supposed to separate us actually brought us together, not as Grandma Ruth had expected, not as a symbol of status or distinction, but as a symbol that a real family is not about who gets what. It's about who is willing to forgive, who is willing to change, who is willing to love, even when it's hard. I turned to Jaden and took his hand. He smiled and kissed me on the temple. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, looking at the ring on my hand, which sparkled in the light of the flashlights. "Everything is more than okay." Whether it was real or a copy, I never found out. And I didn't want to know, because I understood the same thing Miranda did. It's not what we wear that matters. It's what's in our hearts. Love, forgiveness, hope. That's what makes a family strong. That's what gets passed down from generation to generation. Not gold and jewels, but the ability to love, even when it's hard. We dance late into the night. Miranda and Trent left early. Ruth needed to sleep. She hugged me goodbye and whispered, "Thank you for everything, for giving me a chance." "Thank you for taking it." When all the guests had left, Jaden and I sat on the terrace, looking up at the starry sky. He held my hand, twirling the ring on my finger. "Do you think it's real?" I smiled. "I don't know, and I don't want to know." "Why?" "Because it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're together, that we have a family, that we've overcome everything that tried to tear us apart." He kissed my hand right where the ring sparkled. "Then let it remain a secret." Let it remain. The moon shone brightly, illuminating the garden. Somewhere in the mountain house, Miranda was putting Ruth to bed, singing a lullaby. Somewhere in the city, parents were returning home, tired but happy. Somewhere in their apartments, our friends were talking about the beautiful wedding. And we sat on the terrace, planning the future. My future with Jaden, our future as a family. And the rings, real or not, were part of that future. Not as a burden or a curse, but as a reminder that even the most difficult conflicts can be resolved. Even the deepest wounds can heal. Grandma Ruth and Grandpa Vernon wanted the rings to be a symbol of a strong marriage. And they were. Not just one marriage, but two. And not just marriages, but of an entire family that learned to forgive, love, and support each other. That was their true gift, not gold and stones, but a lesson that true value is not in things, but in the people around us, in the relationships we build, in the love we choose every day. And this lesson, like the rings, will be passed down from generation to generation, from me to my children, from Miranda to Ruth, not as a burden, but as a blessing, as a reminder that family is not something that is given to us, but something we create every day through our choices, our forgiveness, our love,